Mr. Duka. This is Grant Wolf from FM 1059, the Chinese Radio Network. I have a question. Now it's just 1 week away to the election day.
That's right.
The new poll shows that the Conservative is leading for 10%. Do you worry about the situation, and what will you do in the last week?
First of all, as I said just a second ago, and by the way, this is why we have election campaigns. Because if we just made our decisions about governments based on what we see in the occasional poll, we wouldn't need campaigns. We could do all this a different way. But the good part, the beautiful part about democracy is that over the course of, in this case, 28 days, all of our candidates are out there working hard. They're talking to their neighbors and their friends, as am I, touring right around this province, talking about the new Ontario Liberal plan that will make our province a place to grow. You know, I learned from my parents and grandparents, there's no shortcut to success. It's just about working hard. It's about earning trust, keeping trust. That's what we're doing every step of the way. And you know what else I see? In particular, since the leaders' debate of a number of days ago, where on that stage it was clear that the only team, the only party that has a clear chance of stopping Doug Ford is the Ontario Liberal Party. And that's evidenced in all of the momentum that is growing around our candidates and our plans. And so we're going to keep working hard. But again, I want to stress, if you, like me, are deeply, deeply concerned about 4 more years of cuts and chaos and havoc from Doug Ford, which is all he knows how to deliver, well, you have one choice. And the only choice to stop Doug Ford is the new Ontario Liberal team, and that's what we're going to do.
Next question. Over there.
Yeah, this is Susan from the same radio station.
No problem.
Yeah, so,
Turn it on.
yeah, so Doug Ford is flat.
I can hear you, though.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Okay, it's pledged to build the infrastructure. How do you identify which project is the priority, which one shouldn't? Let's say, for example, 417, right? So the Conservative Party actually sold the right
They
for
did.
99 years.
Yeah.
How are you going to correct the law? Right the law?
Well, first of all, I spent 3.5 years as the transportation minister in this province. And so I know exactly what work, and I'm emphasizing the word work, and effort is required to successfully build infrastructure. Do you know what Doug Ford's really good at? He's really good at talking. And he's really good at putting out press releases. And he's really good at reading the scripts that other people write for him. He's not so good at actually getting the work done. Every single time he's got the opportunity to show up, which is what leaders need to do, he can't be found. Do you know, months ago when the city of Ottawa was dealing with that illegal occupation, remember when all the people were on Parliament Hill, how horrifying that was? Most premiers would show up. They would go see the people in Ottawa. Are you okay? They'd be talking to the small businesses who were so badly hurt. Do you know where Doug Ford was? Do you guys remember? He chose to go snowmobiling at his cottage instead of showing up in Ottawa. We just saw this past Saturday, pretty horrible storms, right? Here in the GTA, I mean, in my backyard, trees came down. We saw it everywhere. Well, in parts of eastern Ontario and communities just outside of Ottawa and in Ottawa, the devastation is actually quite horrible. Thousands of people without any electricity, small businesses that can't open. That happened on Saturday. I went to those communities on Monday because I wanted to talk to the residents. I wanted to meet with the municipal leaders and our colleague Amanda Simard, so I was there. It's now Thursday, I think, right? I've lost track of my days. It's Thursday. Doug Ford still hasn't gone. He was engaged in political gimmicks and games that he was playing here in the GTA, instead of actually going out to Clarence Rockland and to Ottawa and to Hammond and other communities to see the devastation. So the reason I'm mentioning this is because fundamentally, he simply cannot be trusted to deliver because he thinks the job is sending out a press release, talking a lot, and then disappearing when the work is required. Do you know what I know about Ontario families? Ontario families work hard. My family, since the day they arrived in this country, has worked hard. The only person who doesn't seem to have the desire to work hard is Doug Ford. And I just don't think that's good enough. So when it comes to infrastructure, our plan, fully costed, very balanced, very responsible, shows we will build public transit everywhere. We will support highway expansions and extensions and rehabilitations where they make sense, when they make sense. We will not build Highway 413. We will stop that highway once and for all. That'll be the first thing that our new cabinet does. And we'll take the $10 billion that Doug Ford wants to waste on that highway, that's not going to help any of you, and we're going to put that money into schools, publicly funded schools here in Markham and Don Valley North and right across Ontario. But we actually will deliver because Ontario Liberals are determined to work as hard as you work.
Next question. Over here.
This morning you announced that
Say your name and outlet.
my name is Ray Chan from Singapore. Yeah, and this morning you mentioned that you end for profit at long-term care.
Yes.
So how long will it take and how
How would we do it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, today I repeated today what I'd said actually standing with Jonathan a number of weeks ago in Don Valley North. And that day, Jonathan and I were in the backyard of a couple of seniors from his riding, the Lesnops. And we were in their backyard and we talked about the Ontario Liberal plan to revolutionize seniors care. Now this one is really important to me personally. I mentioned in my opening remarks today that growing up I was so close to all four of my grandparents. My mom's parents, my dad's parents, and of course my mom and dad are now, they're a little bit older, they're in their 80s now, they have a few health challenges like many of our seniors do. And what my mom and dad tell me every time we talk about this issue, what most seniors, almost every senior I've ever spoken with tells me, is that their number one priority is to remain in their own home. They don't want to go into nursing homes. They don't want to be in institutions. So number one, what we will do is invest $4.4 billion in our fully costed plan over 4 years to make sure that we deliver a home care first guarantee. That 400,000 additional seniors will be able to remain at home and get care at home. Maybe that's care with making a meal or taking a shower or just a friendly face to have a conversation with. They'll get that care so they can remain at home. We also know that there are some seniors and some families that do need long-term care. We know that. That's why in our plan, we will build 30,000 new spaces and rehabilitate 28,000 additional spaces in long-term care specifically. And we're going to do that in a different way. As I mentioned, we're going to end for-profit long-term care by 2028, and we're going to make sure that the not-for-profit and municipal sector are invested in and have the capacity to take over the private operations that currently exist. We've specified in our fully costed plan funding each and every year over the next 6 years to make sure we can accomplish this goal. But can I just say, I know in many communities across this province, including in the Chinese community, that there's been extraordinary work that's being done to deliver community-based long-term care for our seniors. And I know in the Chinese community and in so many other communities how we do respect our elders and how we do support our parents and grandparents. And Ontario Liberal government wants to keep that going in the not-for-profit way with proper investments and again, doing our best, moving heaven and earth to keep our seniors at home and to give them the support that they need because again, they've earned it. They've earned it. They sacrificed. They've worked hard. They built this province and country. We cannot abandon them the way that Doug Ford continues to choose to abandon them. Ontario Liberals will do it differently and we'll do it better. Thank you.
Next question. Over there, please.
My name is Helen from Fairfax Television. I just wanted to ask with regards to your new plan for including having seniors stay at home and also including how you have wanted to cap the class sizes for 20. This means that there will be additional personnel that are necessary. How many people do you anticipate you would need and how do you plan on bringing them into the sector?
So on the education side, to cap class sizes at 20 in both elementary and secondary, and that's a hard cap, not a fluid cap, it's a hard cap of 20. We estimate that we would need 10,000 new teachers in the system. We also know in our publicly funded school system right now that there are thousands of, well actually they're not in the system, there are thousands of teachers in this province who are members of the College of Teachers, which means they have their certification, but they are not currently working in publicly funded schools. Some of them might be in the private system, but I suspect that thousands of others have chosen to leave the profession because of the way that Doug Ford has disrespected them, because of the way he's made it difficult, more difficult to teach by letting class sizes go up, and by constantly attacking frontline workers, including in healthcare and education. You know, for 4 years, Doug Ford has made it evident, clear, that he doesn't support publicly funded education. If you think about the last 2 years that my daughters have gone through, like so many kids in this province trying to learn through their computer screens, being isolated from their friends, you would think that the first lesson Doug Ford would have learned about education is that online learning is not the best way to learn. But instead of learning that lesson, just this past February, his government sent out a letter to all of the public school boards in this province. And that letter said that despite how difficult the past 2 years have been, the Ford Conservatives are still insisting on mandatory online learning going forward in high school. That's unbelievable to me. So we will end mandatory online learning. We're going to cap class sizes at 20. We're going to bring back the optional grade 13 for those kids who need a little bit of extra time to deal with their learning loss, to figure out what they want to do next in life. And it's not just a grade 13, it'll be funded and structured. So it's not just arbitrary or random. For those kids who need a little bit of a break to catch up, given how tough the last 2 years have been, we'll make sure that they have the time and the space and the proper support to do that.
Can I follow up?
Yeah.
So does that mean you don't necessarily agree with how Ford has handled the pandemic? Because part of the online learning was to avoid transmission in classrooms.
Well, no, think about it this way. All the way throughout this pandemic, Ontario Liberals have put forward a series of ideas, plans. So in the first wave, we talked about shrinking class sizes to 15 so that our kids could be properly spaced out. This is before we had vaccines. We talked about making sure we had better ventilation in schools. We actually put forward at that point in time, in the summer of 2020, in the first wave of the pandemic, a fully costed and comprehensive plan that would have helped make it easier to keep our schools open. The sad part is that all the way along, Doug Ford has refused to make the investment or lift a finger or make the effort. Remember what I said before, he doesn't like making the effort, right? He's done it all the way through. That's one of the reasons that our schools in this province remained closed as long as they did. It's one of the reasons. I know we had a pandemic. I didn't want my kids to be put at risk. But if I had known for a fact that the air ventilation was modern, that they actually had truly small class sizes, that they had proper supports in place, it would have reduced my anxiety. And I think anxiety that parents across the province have felt, it would have reduced that anxiety as our kids went back to school. The real issue is, where do we go from here? Doug Ford wants to pretend the pandemic didn't even happen. You look at his plan, look at his budget. There's nothing in there that's going to deal with clearing the surgical backlog. There's nothing in there that's going to shrink class sizes or help set our kids up for success. There's nothing in there that's going to help support seniors and keep them safe and healthy. He just wants to pretend it didn't happen. And I think the reason he wants to pretend it didn't happen is that for his friends, his biggest political donors, the richest of the rich in this province, they're doing okay. They don't need what the rest of Ontario families need, the same way that we need it. So he's completely missing an action for what matters. Ontario Liberals are making different choices that will make life easier and more affordable for hardworking families.
Next question. With the last question. Here.
Hi, my name is Lynn. I'm from Honolulu. So I have two questions to ask you. You always talking about the affordability issue. So, and you also mentioned, when we go to the grocery store, the price is too high. So what is your plan to reduce the food cost so people can, like you, go to the restaurant, enjoy the steak?
Yeah, well, exactly.
And
yeah.
also, Liberal government introduced the healthcare tax. Healthcare tax.
I can put here.
Health tax. So,
in 2003.
yeah.
Right.
So, do you have any plan to cancel this tax? Because
So-
this is a lot for our family.
So, number one, I'll start with the second one
Yeah.
first. It was a healthcare premium. And the reason we introduced the premium long before I became an MPP, by the way, long before I became an MPP in 2012, you're talking about a decision that was made a decade earlier in 2003. But let's remember why that took place. It took place because Conservatives had been in power and they had cut and underfunded and put at risk our public healthcare system. And so a Liberal government that I wasn't part of, but a Liberal government decided we needed to invest more in healthcare and chose to make that decision so that you had public healthcare that would keep you and your family safe and healthy. Well, guess what? It's like we're back to where we were, and you know why? Because now again in Ontario, there's a Conservative premier And for 4 years, that conservative premier has cut, has underfunded, has disrespected, undermined all of the core public services we rely upon, including healthcare. He wants to prioritize private healthcare, many of whom are his political donors, to help deal with the surgical and diagnostic backlog. Ontario Liberals believe in public healthcare. I believe Ontarians believe in public healthcare. The good news about our plan, which is fully costed, you can all find it at ontarioliberal.ca, our website, where you can see in black and white exactly what we would invest in healthcare and in other critical areas to help support families with what they need. Our plan is fiscally responsible. The only tax increases that we include in our plan, which brings me to the food question, 2 tax increases. Corporations who earn profits over $1 billion, $1 billion, will pay a little bit more in corporate income tax, and individuals who are high income earners, who make over $500,000 per year, will pay 2 additional points on their personal income tax. Together, those 2 initiatives will bring in about $500 million in revenue for the province, and it's that money that we're going to use to make food purchases more affordable for you. So anytime you go into a restaurant in this wonderful mall, or a grocery store, and you want to pick up any kind of prepared food that's under $20, anything, you'll save 8% each and every single transaction. So a number of days ago, Sandra, you and I went into a business right here, just next door, and we sat down, and the food was delicious, by the way, let me tell you. And we both made a purchase that was below $20. It was lunchtime. Well, every single time an Ontarian goes into a restaurant like that one and purchases anything under $20, under Ontario Liberals, you'll save 8%. That is a real savings to make your life easier and more affordable. Like everything else that's in our affordability pledge, all spelled out in black and white. Doug Ford has no plan to do all of this. Andrea Horwath's platform has changed 7 times in 4 weeks, and it wasn't fully costed until several weeks after they released it, and even then the costing doesn't actually accomplish what they claim they want to accomplish. So, only Ontario Liberals have the plan that is transparent, balanced, fully costed, and the team, Sandra and Jonathan and Emily and everyone else, who will be able to deliver starting on day 1.
So that's the end of the question period. I want to thank everybody who are here today, especially the media friends and also the leader, Stephen Del Duga, and all the candidates here. There will be refreshment at the back, and when you're hungry, you take a bite. And also, if you want to talk to the individual candidates here one-on-one, please go ahead.